John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown. Beneath the cheerful greasepaint smile of Pogo the Clown lurked one of America's most depraved serial killers. John Wayne Gacy, a pillar of his Chicago suburban community, lived a horrifying double life that would leave 33 young men dead and a nation questioning how evil could hide in plain sight. Born in 1942 to an abusive alcoholic father and a passive mother, Gacy's childhood was marked by brutality and humiliation. His father constantly belittled him, calling him weak and worthless, while a family friend sexually assaulted the young boy at age 9. These early experiences warped Gacy's psyche, planting seeds of violence and self-loathing that would later blossom into full-blown psychopathy. After a stint in Iowa where he served time for sexually assaulting a teenage boy, Gacy moved to Chicago and carefully constructed a facade of respectability. By day, he was a successful construction contractor, a Democratic precinct captain, and a beloved children's entertainer who performed at parties as Pogo the Clown. Neighbors described him as friendly and outgoing, the kind of man who organized block parties and even had his photo taken with First Lady Rosalynn Carter. But at night, Gacy prowled the streets in his black Oldsmobile, hunting for victims among Chicago's vulnerable young men, runaways, sex workers, and troubled teens. His methods were chillingly methodical. He would lure boys to his home with promises of work or money, then restrain them with his infamous handcuff trick before subjecting them to hours of torture and sexual violence. When he finally grew bored with his victims, Gacy would strangle them using what he called his rope and board method, tightening a noose around their necks while twisting a wooden stick to cut off their air supply. For years, Gacy hid his atrocities in the most macabre way imaginable, by burying most of his victims in the crawl space beneath his suburban home. As the body count rose to 29, the stench became so overpowering that Gacy claimed it was a sewage problem. When the crawl space could hold no more, he began dumping victims in the nearby Des Plaines River. The facade finally cracked in December 1978 when 15-year-old Robert Piest disappeared after telling his mother about a construction job offer. Police traced Piest's last known whereabouts to a pharmacy where Gacy had been seen lurking. When detectives searched Gacy's home, they found the missing boy's pharmacy receipt and the unmistakable smell of death. What they discovered beneath Gacy's house would become the stuff of nightmares. For days, forensic teams carefully excavated the crawl space, unearthing skeleton after skeleton. Some victims still wore jewelry or clothing. One had a "Kiss Me, I'm Irish" t-shirt. Others were buried with Gacy's clown memorabilia. The sheer number of bodies forced investigators to reinforce the foundation of the house to prevent it from collapsing into the mass grave below. At trial, Gacy showed no remorse, even sketching clown caricatures as survivors testified about their torture. The jury took just 2 hours to convict him of 33 murders at the time, the worst serial killing spree in American history. On death row, Gacy spent his time painting disturbing clown portraits that later sold for thousands of dollars. When he was finally executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994, his last words were as callous as his crimes: "Kiss my ass." The legacy of John Wayne Gacy forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature. How could someone so evil appear so normal? What makes a man transform from a bullied child into a remorseless killer? And most chilling of all, how many other monsters walk among us, their true natures hidden behind masks of normalcy? Gacy's house was eventually demolished, but to this day, locals claim nothing will grow on that cursed patch of land. Perhaps it's nature's way of remembering the horrors that occurred there, a silent memorial to 33 young men whose lives were cut short by a killer who hid behind a clown's smile. The story of John Wayne Gacy serves as a grim reminder that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes, it wears grease paint and a rainbow wig. Sometimes, it's the man next door who volunteers at charity events and makes children laugh. And sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are the ones we'd never suspect. Want more nightmares? Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for our next descent into darkness.